Well, NDP MP Jagmeet Singh does a very outstanding speech about the horrible, deplorable, vile, what have you, events that happened in London. We're completely against it. Our denomination believes in bringing all the faiths together, so it just goes against my grain. Here it is.
Assalamu alaikum. Today's a hard day. To think about what this means to Muslims and their families across this country. We've heard people mention this, but it is so common. All of us have gone for walks with our family in this pandemic because there's nowhere else to go. There's places that are shut down. So you go for a walk. And to think that a family going for a walk couldn't make it home. To think that that casual walk around the block in our neighborhood would be one's last. To think that you can't walk safely down your own street. And to think about what that means for a Muslim family. Right now, people are talking to their families and saying, you know what, maybe you shouldn't go for a walk. There are people literally thinking about whether they should walk out their front door in our country. We think about what that means. Some people have said, this is not our Canada. And I think about what that means when people say, this is not our Canada. This happened in London, Ontario. I lived in London, Ontario for 5 years. I loved my time there. I think about the fact that my parents chose to make Canada our home. I love my home. I love this place. But the reality is, this is our Canada. This is our Canada. Our Canada is a place where 215 little kids were found dead in unmarked graves. Our Canada is a place where you can't walk down the streets if you wear a hijab because you will be killed. This is our Canada. We can't deny it. We can't reject that because it does no one any help. The reality is our Canada is a place of racism, of violence, of genocide of Indigenous people, and our Canada is a place where Muslims aren't safe. They aren't. They aren't safe. Muslims are not safe in this country. And Muslims wonder, I've spoken to people, they wonder, how many more lives will it take? How many more families will be mauled down the street? How many more families will be killed before we do something? Innocent people were killed while praying in a place of prayer, in a masjid, in a mosque in Quebec, gunned down. A man was a Muslim man in Toronto, was knifed and killed. And both of those incidents, we know very clearly that it was directly because of hate. It was because of hate. There was so much hate towards someone that they did not know just because of who they were, because of how they prayed, because of what they looked like. That is a reality. People live with that every day. They walk the streets wondering if I will be attacked just because of the way I look, not because of an enemy that I have, or not because of someone that's got a problem with me. Will I be attacked today just because of the way I look? That is a real question people ask. Wow. What a life to live, that you've got to wonder about that. And we think about people that left violence, they fled persecution, refugees, they come to this country thinking, I'm going to be safe here. This is a place of safety. And they're not safe. To Muslim Canadians, I'm so sorry that you have to live like this, that you have to live in fear. But there are things we can do. There are things we can do. When we think about the lives lost, we think about Salman, Madiha, Yumna, and young Fayaz, who's still alive, and his grandmother. We think about those lives lost and Fayaz still living. What can we do? What can we do now? Things have to change. We can't just do the same thing. We can't just continue as if nothing has happened. There have been so many lives lost, and people are frustrated. So what can we do? One, acknowledge that this is a reality that we have to deal with. This is Canada. This is a part of the country we live in. We've got to deal with it. We can't deny it. We can't ignore it. We have to confront it. This is a part of the country that we live in. And we've got to find a way to make things safer for people. We have to acknowledge that the real and urgent threat to Canadians' safety, these are Canadians, the real and urgent threat to Canadian safety is coming from hate. It's coming from extreme right-wing ideology. It's coming from white supremacy. It's coming from hate groups that are expounding this type of hatred and radicalizing people. That is the real threat to Canadians' lives right now. So something's got to change. There's got to be resources placed to address the real and urgent threats to Canadians' lives. It is not coming from other places. It's coming from Canada, and it's coming from people radicalized to hate people who look different, who pray differently. That is the real threat that Canadians are facing. So then someone's got to listen to this and acknowledge that if that's the real threat, then resources have to be put towards addressing this real threat. We know, and this is a harsh reality, politicians have used Islamophobia for political gain. They have. They have used it as a divisive tool. That has to end. No one can ever use Islamophobia for a political gain. And we all know when it's been done. We all know how it's happened. And I'm not saying that it's solely those politicians who have used Islamophobia for political gain who are to blame. Absolutely not. But you are surely a part of the problem. If you have used Islamophobia for political gain, thinking I can divide people and get votes, this is the result of it. This is what happens when you divide people. You inflame hatred and people die. That's what happens. We need to tackle online hate. It is a real thing. Online hate is radicalizing people. Online hate is spreading messages that teach people to hate and create this fear of the other. We know that it's happening, and we have to be serious about tackling it. Something has to change. It can't just continue. Another life can't be lost, and we do nothing about it. Another family can't be mauled down in the streets, and nothing happens.
What happened was an act of violence and terrorism and hate. We need to confront hatred head on. What happened was senseless and it defies understanding, but we have to do something. We have to act. We have to make decisions. We have to do something to put an end to hate and to this kind of violence.
We decide to do something different as a country, where we come together and say we are going to put an end to hatred. We're going to put an end to violence. We're not going to allow political leaders to use this type of divisive hatred to gain political points. That has to end. That can't continue. We have to be serious about this. And to all the Muslim community right now in Canada that are suffering right now, that are feeling pain right now, I feel your pain. I understand your pain. And we are going to work towards making sure that you do not have to live in fear, that you do not have to walk the streets in fear. We are going to fight for you. Merci. Merci.
Thank you.
I believe the honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands would like to seek unanimous consent to respond to this statement. All those opposed to the honourable member responding to this statement will please say nay. Agreed. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for putting my request forward, and thank you to all my colleagues for this opportunity to speak to this horrific event. Assalamu alaikum. I start with these words. Our hearts are broken. Our minds are numb. This could speak for all of Canada. These are the words of Omar Khamisa, who works as community outreach with the National Council of Canadian Muslims. To everyone in that council, to everyone who is a regular visitor to the Islamic Centre of Southwestern Ontario, where I've had the great honor to meet with imams, to speak of true Islamic spirit, to talk about the enormous contribution to Canada.
Don't forget to like, dislike, subscribe, and comment. Safe Space Cafe. And always, have a good day.